but we make sure that it becomes easy for you because we make sure that you're connected and you're matched.
This is the second day of the pilot program, and I've really learned a lot. Mistakes that I've been making in my business, I'm not the same like the way I've entered here, and it's only the second day.
I'm grateful for the Arielle program because it has helped me to at least know or to be connected in the sense of getting to know people who I can partner with or who can be my suppliers, and just getting also the information on how to penetrate the market.
What I wish I knew is that if this program was there 5 or 10 years ago, I'll probably be way farther than what I am today.
My best experience has been the whole personality of the CEOs or the leaders in the co-founders.
Well,
greetings, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us as we are closing our webinar series for the year 2024. My name is Nandi Wagamkanazi, and I am the Head of Sustainability and Programs for Arielle for Africa. Today, we have an incredible panel for you, where we'll be digging deep into the different opportunities that businesses, not only within the African continent, but globally, have, and how they can access different markets, particularly when they're looking to expand their businesses. Of course, I am not alone today. I'm joined by Clémence, Bruguier, and I'm also joined by Claire Alexander, as well as Edith, Wangare, and Njage. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great to be here. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you very much. Firstly, I would like to thank you for sharing your time with us. We know that you're incredibly busy, making impact, not only in the regions where you come from, but also in the African continent. So I'll start with you, Edith. Edith is, of course, our co-founder for Arielle for Africa, and she's also the founder of Arielle Advisory, and she's championing African businesses, not only startups, but also commercialized businesses, not only within the tech space, but we, of course, we're venturing into different areas, commercial real estate, health, as well as pharmaceuticals. Edith, if you can just give, our audience just a brief introduction of who you are and why, building startups is something that's really close to your heart.
Hi, everyone. I've not been on an Arielle webinar in a very long time, so it's about time. And thank you so much, Nandi, for putting this together. My name is Edith Njage, and I am co-founder at Arielle for Africa and Arielle Advisory. And I have a big heart for young people, big heart for impact, big heart for making a difference and making sure that Africa has the very, very best that we can offer. As a business owner myself, because I say I've never been employed, all of these my years, I have never received a paycheck. So a lot of times it's a fellow entrepreneur supporting other entrepreneurs. I have loved so much the last 6 years, and now we're in our 7th year of Arielle. I have loved so much working with entrepreneurs, startups, as well as SMEs. And what we do at Arielle for Africa has been so impactful, yes, for the businesses and entrepreneurs that we've worked with, who are at the moment over 5,000, but also for us as well internally. I think every single time I feel any form of self-doubt or questioning, or do I really want to be doing this, it's a consistent reminder when I see stories like the one we were just watching at the beginning, and I'm like, oh wait, I remember them, and we helped them, and now their businesses are, I don't know, doing thousands of dollars, or have 7 more employees and are growing, or are in another country because of the work that we've done, or have launched more chefs into the market. So I think for me, just as a person, aside from everything that I do as an author, as a leader, as a CEO, as a co-founder, as a human being, supporting entrepreneurs really has been the highlight of my lifetime.
Very much. Thank you very much for that, Edith. And, I'm sure now our audience had an opportunity to learn more about you. And of course, next we've got Clémence. Clémence is the founder of an incredible organization called Human to Humans, which is a human-centered design focused organization that is dedicated to equip and empower SMEs, and of course, as well as the founders. And of course, I am one of the alumni of this incredible program. Early on in my business, they really helped me to pivot and remodel and really tap into markets that I did not have access to. Clémence, please unmute yourself and share a bit about your journey and the reason behind your starting Humans to Humans and the other incredible organizations you're part of.
Okay, thank you, Nandi. And first of all, I would love to have you in every single session I do because you sell the program better than I can sell the program. So this is awesome. But thanks for bringing me on today. It's lovely to be with you, Edith and Claire. A little bit about me. My name is Clémence. I'm French. My name kind of gives that away. I've been based out of the US for a little while now, and I discovered by accident, I think pretty early on, that I like to build things. And I like to be creative and think outside the box. And that was weird in middle school and high school, but I somehow kept it going through different not-for-profits that I've built, and Humans to Humans is one of them. And I'm especially passionate about it, as I believe in its core mission, which is really to bridge the gap between developed and emerging economies. And I thought really hard about, how can I do that? And how can I best help do that, actually? Because the disparities are just quite huge, and they really shouldn't be, right? We should all have access to the same resources and just level out playing the fields, because really smart people are everywhere. And I believe this to my core. So, I wanted to work actually with fellow entrepreneurs and startups based out in Africa, and I just couldn't find a way to do that. So I said, okay, let's create a network, tap into various partners, and actually connect with African startups and help them plug in with really smart students who go to top universities around the US and Europe. Let's make teams. And by the way, a startup is way less likely to fail if you have very different people on your team. So it, out of this idea blew up an entire organization, which Nandi was one of our alumni, and I'll be super happy to share about in more depth. And I'm its founder, which I guess you kind of heard through the passion. Anyways, thank you.
No, thank you so much for that, Clémence. We will definitely touch on the importance of building a team early on as a startup, because I think that's generally a mistake that a lot of founders make. They build these incredible visionary businesses all on their own, and only later do they start onboarding people. And at that time, they're already onboarded with a lot of work, and it's very difficult to actually find somebody that you can trust, with this baby that you've created. And obviously finding a network that you can collaborate with. And of course, this is where Claire comes in. Claire is an expert when it comes to collaboration, connecting businesses, on different continents. And of course, she's the co-founder of an organization called Scottish, sorry about that, of an organization called Africa Scotland Business Network, which of course helps to facilitate collaboration between different businesses across the globe. She's also a co-founder of Firecracker, which is an incredible events management company that uses innovative and impactful strategies to be able to bring different people together where they can network and about branding and marketing. Claire, please unmute yourself and share a bit about your journey and the reason why you're so passionate about building partnerships and networks between businesses.
For sure. Thanks so much, Nandi. And I'm not, the same as Clémence. I'm struggling to do a better introduction than you can do for me. So thanks very much, and thanks very much for having me on the show. Like Clémence, I'm also a foreign national. I'm from Scotland, and I've been in South Africa for 17 years. So I'm fairly entrenched in the African ecosystem now. Actually, if I can back up a little bit, I actually came to Africa by mistake. I had no intention to even travel here when I was in my youth, and I ended up here by accident. And when I got here, when you're in a new environment, your eyes are a lot wider open. And I just saw incredible opportunity everywhere I looked, and realised that South Africa, not just South Africa, but Africa, as I got to know more people on the continent, lived here longer, that this continent is truly alive with opportunity and potential. It always has been. And I found myself getting a job here. I decided to stay here. This was 17 years ago. And after working in Cape Town in the South African ecosystem for 5 years, predominantly in the event management industry, I co-founded my first company with literally 50 Rand. It's a bit of an entrepreneurial story. Myself and my South African business partner, I was only 29 at the time. I didn't have much to lose. I mean, like, I had 500 Rand in my bank account, and we just decided to take the leap. That it was a fork in the road for me personally. It was either start your own business and let's see if it works, or I go back to Scotland with my tail between my legs and missing Africa forever. But thankfully, Firecracker started really, really well. We hit the ground running to get that company off the ground. That company started in 2012. It's an event management, marketing, and digital marketing firm. We're based in Cape Town, and we're now serving clients from South Africa, in Cape Town, all over the world, on every continent except the icy ones. And after 8 years at the reins of Firecracker, again, the opportunities just kept showing themselves. And it was the internationalization of Firecracker that I realised that there's a massive opportunity to help connect Africa and Africans together. And if there's a possibility to even take a network, an African network, and bridge it with my home country of Scotland, people thought I was absolutely crazy. So we founded Africa Scotland Business Network. We put our entrepreneurial spirit, we put our neck on the block, and we launched in 2019, 3 months before the pandemic. We didn't know it was coming. And again, we hit the ground running. We used our existing networks to get Africa Scotland Business Network off the ground. And here we are today. Next week, our network turns 5 years old, and that has transpired into an international African business network that now has a head office member company footprint, just counting the head offices, in 15 countries. And we've unfolded way beyond Africa and Scotland into a much more Europe, Middle East, and African business network. So here I am today, still in Cape Town, still in Africa. I'll probably never leave.
Thank you so much for that, Karen. I definitely would not blame you for never wanting to leave Africa. I mean, we are a continent that is diverse. We're a continent with resilient people and, creativity and just sheer brilliance. And, you touched on some really incredible points that I would actually like us to expand on, coming into a new market, in a new area as an entrepreneur, in an area that you're not familiar with. You're not, privy to the nuances and how businesses operate. And of course, you have to start from scratch of building networks. So for you, Claire, somebody that works precisely in, bringing companies together, bringing key individuals that can not only develop businesses, but help them scale, what would you say are the most important steps that a business should consider, or an entrepreneur rather should consider, when they want to grow their business to enter into international markets?
Yeah, sure. So scaling a company is really difficult. The saying is true. Anyone can start a company, but not everyone can scale a company. Both my businesses are in the scale up phase right now. We're 2 to 3 years in the scale up phase, and it's difficult. It requires a lot of work, a lot of effort. But the first thing I would advise, and it's something that myself and my business partner Nicola have done, is surround yourself with a brilliant group of mentors who are perhaps 10, 20 years further down the line than you in your business journey. So we have 11 mentors / board advisors to our companies, and they're all very, very different. They all do it for free. Of course, they get profiled on our websites and in our networks and in our business communities. But what I've realized in Africa is that people are very generous. You just have to have the confidence to ask. And not all of the mentors were actually known to us at the time. I just reached out on LinkedIn to a couple of them. And I think that's really important as well, because the people that don't know you so personally are more likely to tell you the truth. And sometimes the truth is really difficult to hear when you're scaling a business. So I would definitely surround yourself with a group of trusted advisors who have proof of scaling and growing a business into a successful venture. So that would be the first thing I'd do. You need capital to scale, especially if you are looking to expand into other countries. It can cost a lot of money. So ensure that you've got the investment or the loans or the capital in the bank to do it. What does that money pay for? Well, you might need to create a whole separate marketing campaign in that country. You can't always assume that what people want in Tanzania is the same as what people want in Nigeria. You know, Africa isn't one thing. It's 54 very different countries. So you have to understand that scaling a business doesn't come for free, unless you are, you know, that 0.5% who writes an amazing blog and all of a sudden you're getting sponsored all over the place. But the reality is, for most ordinary entrepreneurs, you need the capital to grow, not only expand, but grow the company with staff, with more marketing. You usually need more technology, more licenses. So it's about growing, but ensuring that the profit margin is also growing as the operational curve grows as well. So I definitely take that into consideration, and ask questions. How much money? There's always going to be people that have done this before, even if it's from South Africa going across the border. Ask people who have done it before to get a sense check of how much money it's going to cost. Obviously it depends on what industry you're in, how you go about expanding into different countries. If you're going the partner route, or if you're going to try and land and expand. There's various ways of actually stretching yourself out of your own borders. And again, there's going to be different costs that are attributed to the route to market. So definitely get a sense check of how much it's going to cost and make sure you've got the capital to do it. And also to ensure you've got the time. Time, in my experience, is one of the most underrated factors in the journey of an entrepreneur. We don't realize how much time something can take. So taking the time to scale a company and get it into overseas markets. Sometimes I'll be working 16 hours a day. I have 2 young children here, but thankfully I have a team around me to support our entrepreneurial journey. So definitely the right mentors and time and money are huge considerations. And maybe I can expand a bit on, the details of that further down this conversation.
No, definitely. So I love the 3 points that you focus on, the team, the capital, and the time. And that's something that, Clémence's organization has really zoned in on and closed that gap for entrepreneurs. where you're coming on as a founder. You've got this big vision. You've got all these things that you want to do, and they come in and they help you actually, focus on the most important KPIs. They bring in a team for that first 3 months while you're part of the program to really help you tick off those boxes. And of course, you start then having a time that you need as a founder, which oftentimes we really neglect, where you actually now focusing on your health, on your mental well-being. But it's very critical that you have all those three things in place. And you also mentioned mentorship, which I myself cannot emphasize enough, because the thing with a mentor is that, like you said, they've worked the journey before you, so they're going to help you avoid the pitfalls. It's going to save you money. It's going to save you time, because there's certain things that you don't actually have to experience for yourself, because there's a mentor that's come, on board that's going to assist you with that. So for you, Clémence, as somebody, that operates not only in Europe, but also heavily in the US, entering now the African market, of course, Claire has spoken about the steps that a business needs to consider before you scale into a global market. What I would like to ask you is, how do you, or how have you, as yourself, not only as a business support organization, but also as an entrepreneur for yourself, how have you been able to select which global market you enter into? I mean, there's a lot of buzzword now. There's tech, there's AI, there's data, there's risk management, there's the blue, green economy. How do you actually, or what would be the best advice or the factors that you can share with those that are joining us online that one would need to focus or, consider into selecting which global market you go into?
That's a really good question. First of all, I like to take a bird's eye view, if you will, of the world, right? You're expanding globally. Maybe let's reframe that question with, what is your product? Who are you serving? Where are those people? And once you've, answered those three pretty basic questions, it would be, well, what's the geopolitical situation in that country? What does their economy look like? And what are the policies? Are their government overall supportive of a startup and building out like a startup entrepreneurial ecosystem? Great. There will be grants available, some loan money, that you'll be able to have some type of government support to, start and scale your company down the road, whatever that is. So that's the first one, really looking at the geopolitical and policies that exist. That's very broad, and that's not, things that entrepreneurs typically look into. They're like, oh, well, the next country is this one. We should really just launch there and we'll net pick on our product, and that's the target market. Sure. But take a second to take a step back. What if the currency is not great there? What if there's a lot of risk and uncertainty? Will your investors eventually follow you down that market? You really want to think about all those things. So that's the very first one that I've taken into consideration in terms of where do I think, humans to humans can grow, but also for any entrepreneur, like where do you think your business can grow? The second one will be on people and creating a network where you can trust people and you have a good fit. So, that just comes from networking, meeting, talking to new people, and then just seeing kind of how the ball ends up rolling. How I can talk about personal experience here with Humans to Humans. I started off with a connection in Ghana and then somehow ended up with a lot of connections in Cape Town. And it just happened to be that way. When we were looking into the Southeast Asian market, I initially had a lot of connections through Cambodia, and then through different people, met a lot of people from Nepal and Bhutan, and then Vietnam, and then of course India. So, but I didn't specifically go out seeking one country. It was also very organic in terms of where you have those connections, you're going to be the most credible, and people can vouch for you, right? They can give you their word too, which I think is a lot. And a lot of times when you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to scale into a new country or, just enter it, you need a good, warm introduction. And what is a warm introduction? Nandi introducing me on this webinar for me, right? You spoke on behalf of the program for itself, but you really do need that. Someone introducing you to a venture capitalist, someone introducing you to a factory owner that's going to be able to, recreate your product multiple times. So yeah, stay away from the buzzword, take a bird's eye view, and then, build a network and people that you trust. And of course, where your product's going to be the most impactful.
Definitely. I actually love what you said, because oftentimes, we can, as entrepreneurs, have a very myopic view of, the world, what happens, and how we actually fit into that and how we can contribute. And that's where the biggest pitfalls come in. You see that there's a huge demand in the Asian market, and you want to scale quickly there, and you haven't done, the feasibility study or the actual due diligence if, your type of product can meet the customer's needs. With you, Edith, somebody obviously that's an entrepreneur. You've started a lot of businesses. You've had a lot of businesses scale and grow. And now, obviously, with Arielle Advisory, we're starting to go into different markets, into South America. We're going deeper into North America, with a focus on African companies, not only startups. What have been some of the tools or some of the factors that you consider that, when you're helping businesses to assess if they are indeed ready to scale globally? Claire spoke about how do you actually do it? How do you tap into a different global market? Clémence touched on the different factors that you need to consider, or, when it comes to the type of global market that you want to enter. But for you, I would like you to expand for us. What have been some of, the indicators that you've used to assess if a business is ready to indeed scale globally?
Yeah, I think that's an important one, Nandi. I would say, number one, the assumption that people are willing to buy what you have to sell. Because at the end of the day, you have to make money. Otherwise, there is no business. It doesn't matter if you're a charity, if you're a nonprofit, if you're a social business. At the end of the day, there has to be some sort of like picking up or revenue generation or traction. Okay. And there has to be value that you're bringing that leads to the revenue or the traction. So one of the things that I always assess is there the ability and the willingness to buy what you have to sell, okay, in whatever jurisdiction you're looking at? That's number one. Number two, I look at, do you have the personality as a founder to appeal to that jurisdiction? Because at the end of the day, people don't buy products or services, people buy people. So are you the person that people are going to buy? And if not, who is? Because as a business owner, either I can become that person, or I can hire that person, or I can partner with that person. So that's always very important to know. For me, for example, there are jurisdictions that I know simply because of who I am, how I look. There are some jurisdictions that you'll never hear me talking about Arielle going to some countries, okay? And I will not name them because maybe they're watching this. But I wouldn't mention some countries just by virtue of, okay, what Edith looks like, how she speaks, what her personality is like. I might not tick their boxes of what is palatable, acceptable, and celebrated in those jurisdictions. And then the third thing that I feel like business people don't consider when we talk about tools, I very much like to look at legalities. Okay, so when I say legalities, I mean setting up in another country. Are you going to register the business there? Are there trade agreements between your current setup and that jurisdiction? Is there double tax implication for the revenues that you're making? Because then you might not as well go. Are you setting up a fresh entity? Is it a subsidiary of your current entity? Like, there's a lot that goes into it. And then, are you better off doing a strategic alliance? Should you consider a joint venture? Should you see how to perhaps franchise your business? And what does that look like? So there's so much that you can actually weigh beyond just, oh, I want to get up and go to, Nigeria looks like, okay, personally for me, that would be Senegal. Senegal sounds great. But once I get there, Edith does not know French for nothing, okay? So Edith, are you going to sit down and learn the language? Because that does bring an element of respect. So weighing all of these things, of course, more of the behavioral bits because we are people. Okay, Clémence is here, humans to humans. We are humans. Okay, so at the end of the day, there are the people elements. There are the legal things that you need to weigh. And then there are, of course, I would say more the financial things. Are you going to make money or not? And if you're not going to make money there, a lot of businesses there then would ask, how would I know if I'm going to generate revenue? I would say, number one, start with your competition. Are they there? Are they offering what you are offering? Number two, what is their pricing like? Number three, what overheads are you looking at in that jurisdiction? Then weigh all of this with no bias, okay? And then make an informed decision. So when we talk about financials, it's not just about, okay, are they willing to buy? They might buy there at a much lower price than where you currently are, or they might buy there at a much higher price, right? So, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a numbers person. So all these are things that I think businesses should weigh. I think starting off with having a very good legal friend, having a very good numbers friend, and then having a very good like communications marketing friend that can just be honest with you and then take it from there.
I love that you jumped onto my next question and what I wanted us to focus on. Some of the regulatory challenges that businesses face when they're entering a new market. Of course, there's a human element. They may just not like you. There's not much you can do about that. But of course, it goes back to what we mentioned earlier, actually building a strong team and hiring your weakness. Because oftentimes people just want to duplicate themselves. If you're a brilliant communicator, you want to onboard another communicator, then that will obviously now leave a gap in the company, which is one of the pitfalls for a lot of businesses. So, I'll start with you, Edith. So obviously you started your business in Kenya, you scaled to other regions. Which region within the continent was the most difficult for you to penetrate when it comes to regulations? Of course, now we do have the FCFTA, which we'll touch on very likely towards the end of our conversation. But generally, was it North Africa? Was it West Africa? Was it Southern Africa? And of course, I know that Central Africa does tend to be a thorn in everyone's side when you're looking into that market. Clémence touched on geopolitical issues. There's always constant changes, which is not something that's unique within the African continent. So for you, what have been, some of your regulatory challenges that you face, and with which region was the most difficult? And then thirdly, how did you overcome those barriers?
Yeah, I think that's an important question. I'll start by saying this. Where no policy exists, okay, is both a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing because it means you can do a lot, okay? It's a bad thing because it means sometimes you're doing things and then they realize, then they say, oh, okay, so and so is now doing this. Let's come and make life difficult for so and so. So I think for me, the hardest has been, I want to say Ethiopia, and I love them. Okay, those are my people. Like I speak the language, Amarinya Tinish Tinish, a little bit, but I mean, I love the people. Those are my people. I would say culturally, it was the most difficult because if you don't speak the language, no one's going to talk to you. Not really, but like at the time, no one was going to talk to you. So language barrier was one. Number two, there was no policy around some spaces, or the policy was still being developed because again, they were not colonized. So the way that their business space has evolved has been different compared to, I don't know, Kenya or South Africa or Nigeria or Ghana. So for Ethiopia, in terms of the policies, like only now are they launching credit unions, only now are they allowing international banks to set up. So movement of money, ooh, that was a pain. So we had to move product, then you move the product to another country, then you sell that product, then you make money, then now you use that money. So, I mean, you had to find creative ways to get past the financial issues. Importation of product, again, also a big issue. Some of the benefits, though, is, I mean, the government, when it comes to their withholding tax, if you're high impact business, again, very good rates. They are also very interesting people because either they love you 100% or not at all. So either you're one of them or not at all, which is, I think, a good experience for me because I ended up being like one of them. I would say another thing that people don't talk about with doing business in different African markets is the currency element. Okay. So another challenge I had in Ethiopia is changing from the birr to the dollar and having to do transactions, okay, within the market. I won't call it anything, I'll say in the market. Okay, so doing transactions in the market to get your dollars. Okay, also very hard. So for a lot of these things, it made business very difficult because I would go in with a certain amount thinking, okay, this will come to, I don't know, $5,000, but then it ends up coming to 2,500 because in the market they'll take a different rate, right? And a lot of times it was 50% less. So things like that are very painful. Now, another jurisdiction where I've had issues is I'll say Nigeria, and I'll say it because AFCFTA is alive and well, but I still need a visa to go there. And my visa, each time I arrive, is a new visa, which is almost $300. New, fresh visa each time. So, and that visa is only valid, I think, for a month. Then after that, it goes in the toilet. So there was no point of it. So aside from making my passport full, okay, and charging obscene amounts of money, that has become very difficult. Then there's the element of the depreciation of the naira. Okay. And when you're then converting or quoting something in dollars, if you're doing business with someone there, they have to go change those nairas to dollars. Then once the dollars are changed, then they're given to me. Then I, for my use, have to come change it to Kenya shillings. There's slippage in Africa because of the use of the dollar. Now, does this mean that we have to find, I don't know, an African unified currency? We talked about that during our AgSef conference. Maybe that's where we need to go. Are they going to agree? I don't know. But I think it's made stuff very, very difficult. How I get past a lot of these issues is, number one, if you're a person doing business in a different jurisdiction, quote and charge in another currency. So your euros, your pounds, your dollars. Do not take local currency and try and change it. Number one. Number two, make sure that you are allowed to function in that jurisdiction. If you are not, function via another entity, have a strategic alliance, have a partnership, and then have a contract wherein you exchange funds. Then number three, I think also very, very important is have the necessary relationships on the ground. You know, in Swahili we say vitu kwa ground ni different, which translates to things on the ground are different. So in theory, you'd think I'd walk into a bank with my bill and leave with dollars. It's not how it's going to work. So I think having people contacts that have the know-how, right? That can help with a lot of the financial issue, the regulatory issues. I would say set up an LLC in that country, pay taxes in that country. Via that LLC, you might need to have a shareholder in that country. So for example, to function in Ghana, we needed to have a shareholder in Ghana. That is not myself. So these are all realities that you then have to come to and say, okay, do I want to function or do I want to win? And a lot of times, entrepreneurs, those are two different things.
This one, I'm gonna ask you to jump in. Of course, you've mentioned the challenges that you had when it comes to regulations within the different regions that you've gone in. Understanding the nuances of a country. How do the currencies work? Should I register? Should I not? Which taxes will affect me? But the critical takeaway from what you just shared with your experience right now is the importance of partnerships. And of course, as we know, Claire is a guru when it comes to collaboration, networking, partnerships. And oftentimes, everybody looks good on paper. Everybody smells good when you meet them the first time. But when you're considering forming other partnership, other collaboration, signing MOUs, for you, Claire, what has been the top three factors that you've considered when it comes to forming partnerships?
Sure, it's a great question, a tough one. The first one is definitely due diligence. Something might look brilliant on paper, on a brilliant business plan. They could have a brilliant website, but that might not be the case on the ground, right? So we would always do due diligence on a company that is looking to partner with us if we have absolutely no reference to that company. Now, usually Africa has a brilliant referral system in the business ecosystem. So the chances are you can reach out into those countries, ask for a little bit of advice on a certain company. And that's exactly why I set up a Pan-African business network, because it will help people reach into countries quickly and to people directly on the ground. So it also acts as a source, an intelligence base as well. So definitely do your due diligence. Now, sometimes you can get away with just asking people on the ground for, a good reference, and it could be as simple as that. Sometimes you might have to bring in a security company or a company that does due diligence and pay them a little bit of money to actually do the digging for you. And I can't stress that enough, because there can sometimes be, and it completely differs country to country, where a lack of social trust does exist. So it's really, and I mean, that's like a universal problem. But in Africa, you don't want to get your fingers burned, right? You can lose a lot of money, you can lose a lot of time. So rather do due diligence to make sure that the company that you're looking to work with is who they say they are. Secondly, I would also check their value system. Their culture and value is a huge expression of what that company stands for, their objectives, their missions, and you need to be sure that you're completely aligned with that as well. And third, I would actually just meet them in person. And sometimes that also costs a bit of money, but rather make the investment to jump on a plane and meet them in person. There's no more powerful form of communication than when you're sitting in front of people, right? You can, our body language, and you've alluded that business people are also human. And when you sit in front of someone, it's a lot different from sitting online. You can read their nuances. 90% of our communication is body language. So for me, I would rather make the investment to go and actually sit in front of people and make sure that they are who they say they are, if I can afford to do it, if I've got the time to do it, and if it's important enough, especially if it could lead to, big deals, big business that creates, that hopefully creates even greater impact. I will make the investment to meet them in person.
Thank you very much for that, Kay. One of the services that we offer at Arielle for Africa is doing feasibility studies. And actually what we'll do is we'll send out a team to a particular region where one of our clients is looking to scale, so they can do that on that ground assessment and be able to conduct what you're talking about. Due diligence, that building relationship, how does the actual ecosystem work? Where are the different pain points within that region? And of course, that takes, huge investments in time, in money. But we found that actually doing that from the get-go saves us a lot of time, later on, and of course, money, and actually helps us start to de-risk, our clients' businesses even before we enter into that market. And, I know with Clémence, not only through human to humans, you are part of a lot of ecosystems. I mean, of course, you work with top learners from some of the world's top universities. A lot of these engagements do happen virtually, but I know that you and your team are very intentional in actually going out to all these different regions, doing follow up with the alumni, going into the regions and actually getting a sense of real time how businesses operate and what are some of the struggles that the entrepreneurs have had, so that you can offer other programs such as the one that you've shared with us off the call, that you even launching in 2025. So when it comes to the human element, where you are bringing people into someone's company, for instance, with your program, you bring in students. They can be from Asia, they can be from France, from the US. What are some of the factors that you consider in-house when you're doing the due diligence with the universities, with the actual students themselves, before you start pairing them with the entrepreneurs that you pair them with? Because of course this is a program, but it relates directly to building entrepreneurs and companies, but it is something that I think we can learn from with your experience.
Happy to talk about that. Firstly, actually, we ask the entrepreneur, what are your goals? What are you looking to accomplish during the program? And we really get to know the entrepreneurs, because they're the ones, right, that need the help. So sometimes you say you need some capital, but you really need someone to build out a new website or work on a piece of tech, whether that's hardware, software, right? You need someone to help you with the financing, to put a pitch book together, whatever it is. So first of all, we really ask the entrepreneurs, what do you need? And we also get to know them as people. What are their values? What are their company's values? And will they aligned with our program's value, which is to be collaborative, be innovative, and also put your best foot forward, because people are going to be coming from different cultures and you want to assume the best from everyone. So first of all, it really starts with the entrepreneur, right? To better frame this. Secondly, we then choose some universities that we work with. All the universities that we worked with are obviously some of the best universities around the world. So whether that be in North America or Europe, and that's a stamp of approval on already the students' skills, right? The fact they're able to get in those universities, that needs to mean something. And then when we have our application process in terms of how do we determine, which student gets in our program, then which student gets matched up with the entrepreneur, right? So first of all, we ask very simple questions during our application, which is, why do you want to be a part of this program? You do understand you're going to be working with someone that's halfway across the world that doesn't have your time zone with a startup, right? You gotta be very real about what this experience is. And you can readily tell from people's responses who has put thought into this and really wants to be a part of that experience and be helpful to an entrepreneur, and who doesn't, and who's going to have time management issues, and someone who has, a final and something else to work with, right? Because students have lives and entrepreneurs have their businesses and they want to keep on churning that profit. So you want to make sure that's very clear. We then we have a values question, and we feel that out during interviews of are you looking to contribute in a positive way? Will you also be patient? There will be cultural barriers. There might be accents that get in the way there. So, are all those things taken into account? And do we think you're going to be the right person? Those are interpersonal soft skills, and it takes multiple interviews. Sometimes we're not sure. We re-interview people. And finally, 2 final points, we'll make sure that the student skill obviously is adapted to what the entrepreneur needs, right? That's the first thing. But all the more importantly, we'll make sure that their human self will be a good match with the entrepreneur. If we have a very dominating personality as a student who thinks he's a huge contributor, or she thinks she's a huge contributor and always knows the answer and knows what's right and is going to explain to the entrepreneur what their business needs, more than listening and hearing out what the entrepreneur's problem needs with a more soft-spoken entrepreneur, that's not going to work, right? You need to have a good collaborative aspect. And I think this is pretty obvious, but really needs to be done well, whether that's through cultural differences, gender differences, just personality, right? all of these make it that you either thrive or don't when you're a part of a team, as a job, as a startup, for anything, right? Even on a sports team.
So, we are unfortunately running out of time, nearing the end of the webinar. But I just want to explain just briefly on what you mentioned, Clémence. Obviously, I've had the experience of being part of the program, and, I can attest, to the rigorous process from application to matching with the different students to really assessing your most important KPIs, from a business standpoint. And when you eventually get matched with the students that work in your business, for me, I still have those incredible relationships that I formed, I think in 2021, 22, that, I've maintained throughout the entire process because of the very specific elements that worked into building out that program. And so, a question that I'm just going to throw to the panel that we got from our LinkedIn page is how can businesses effectively manage financial risk associated with scaling a business into different regions? So from our panel, whoever wants to, answer this question, it wasn't directed to a specific speaker, but it is a question that we received through LinkedIn. So I'll ask you. Okay. Let's touch. So I'll put somebody on the spot. Okay. So you the easiest take, of course, Edith, because you're the first one that I see on the screen. So I'll ask you, of course, as a financial person, how have you effectively in your own business? Let's speak about your own business. How have you effectively managed, the financial risk associated with scaling your business across the different regions within the continent, and of course, in the US? Let's focus on North America after the African continent.
Yeah, I think the mark of a good, actually, let me correct that. The mark of a great entrepreneur is your ability to be a shrewd manager. Okay. And I say this because these are things that I'm still working on. It's not that I have these things on lock, but I want to have them on lock. When you are scaling, there are two possible things that can happen, and a lot of them sit on you as a founder and how shrewd you are. And one, you could hemorrhage like a problem. You can be bleeding money. You're making money, but you're bleeding. Okay. Then number two is you can be getting ready for that growth. The way when people do your financials, there's always that beautiful, that rise. We love to see it in the numbers. You can have that, okay, and have that also in your profit, not just in your revenues. Because some people have it in revenues, but their costs at the same time also go up. So a lot of this, I would say, sits on, are you able to be a shrewd man? And when I say shrewd, I mean you're not giving things for free. You're charging the worth of the product, of the service. You're not doing anybody favors. You're not trying to help anybody. You're not shooting yourself in the foot to feed somebody else's family. You are charging what you should charge because you bring value, period. And if necessary, because your costs have gone up with the growth, you are charging more. Like that's like the most important. When we talk financials, right? I have to be very practical. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that as you scale, you can scale the revenues and sustain your cost. And again, this is skill. And a doctor cannot treat themselves. Okay. So from my experience, and I'm saying this as a lesson, please find somebody else that can sit with you and look at your expenses, look at your costs, and look at your books and advise you. That is not yourself. I say this even as I'm sitting here with my master's in finance and my undergraduate in finance. Like I'm finance, like I'm numbers through and through. But I cannot help my own company's financials, okay? I cannot be the one to budget. I advise from my experience, bring an outsider that can sit down with you and can hold you accountable. They're called financial planners. They can be called wealth managers. They can be called an ex-auditor can also do the job. I would also prefer that you get someone who's also run a business so they actually understand what you need and what you don't need. Because there are some things you want. I say this as somebody who hired people I shouldn't have hired. There are some things you want, then there are the things your business needs. Not always the same thing. So I think businesses also need to know what's a luxury and what's a necessity, and knowing when they can afford a luxury and when they can afford, and when they just need to stick to necessities. I would say take 3 years of necessities before you go into luxuries for whatever your business is. Me, I don't know what your business is, but for whatever your business is, take your 3 years. Okay, stick to what must be there in order for you to deliver the value you deliver. Everything else is excess fat, okay? And you have, because the money goes somewhere. And if it goes out, then you don't have it. And if you don't have it, then how are you going to keep doing what you do? Because at the
Yes.
end of the day, it comes to money. It comes to money.
Yeah. No, I love that. If the numbers don't make sense, don't force business. That's one of the key rules for us at Arielle. If the numbers are not making sense, we do not force business. We also we pivot as quickly as we can. Of course, taking into consideration our clients and our team, but that is something that entrepreneurs need to learn and need to learn quickly. So with us closing here, obviously 2029 was the time, like you mentioned, you were going into a particular business. 2020 happened. How did you pivot and de-risk your business? That's the closing question that I have. And then after that, I'm just going to ask that each of our speakers, give us parting shots. So how did you pivot your business and how did you de-risk your business, especially with the major changes that happened, with COVID, the hard lockdowns in South Africa. And of course, Edith has spoken about de-risking business from a financial standpoint, but there's obviously the human element that we are all very aware of as founders. How did you do it for your business?
Sure. So that question takes me back to 2020 and all those nauseating feelings that I felt when the hard lockdown was declared in South Africa. I had Firecracker, which is very much, events and marketing. It's a people business. 70% of our revenue was the events industry. And we had this new budding business network that relies on bringing people together to actually function. That's what people pay an annual membership for. So we had to think very quickly, what are we going to do? And I'm going to keep this contained to our African business network, just to kind of use this as a case study. So we got a bit lucky because people were looking for connection left, right, and centre. And here we are with this beautiful new product that could, provide them exactly what they needed, with a team that was just me, my business partner, and one other person at the time. Here we are with a beautiful brand, a board around us, a brand new, proactive, contemporary, accessible, Pan-African, international business network. And we just got lucky, we struck at the right time. And even though we didn't know that we were coming into a pandemic, the business, it dropped at the right time for us. And ironically, the year of COVID, 2020, actually saw the fastest growth that we had in the uptake of new member companies. And when we investigated why that was, people they were desperate for connection. We weren't, in many African countries, we weren't allowed to go out our own homes. So we had to adapt. We used our entrepreneurial experience from our first company. You have to be agile. You have to be able to adapt quickly, especially in sometimes volatile African markets. It's like the law of the land here. If you can't adapt quickly and be resilient in Africa, you're going to struggle as a business owner. So we turned all our events for our member companies into digital platforms. We made them very different, so people had different types of events that they could come into, different spaces, different people, to mix it up a little bit, and it worked. We designed a really quick event strategy for the year, because history repeats itself. A pandemic isn't going to disappear in a month. We knew that this was going to be. We were in this pandemic for the long haul, so we digitized pretty much everything except ourselves. So although we were providing the spaces for our new member companies to come into, they always knew that they had a human team at the end of an email or a phone call, and that provided them with brilliant support that they were looking for. And what that did for our company, all these conversations that we were having, it actually helped us shape what Africa Scotland Business Network was all about. So that year, although it was a really, really traumatic time for so many companies, I lost. There's businesses. I've got friends in business in South Africa. They lost their business, but it was also very fortuitous for our business network, and it actually helped shape year 2, year 3, year 4, and here we are going into year 5 with the building blocks that we needed from having direct conversations with people during the pandemic.
Oh, that's a beautiful story, Claire. But before I get into it, I just want to give Clémence a chance to give us her parting words. She does have to jump off. It is, of course, early morning in New York. We really do appreciate you joining us and sharing some of your incredible insights as a founder, as somebody who owns a business support organization. And we know that you are not only doing incredible work in Europe and the US, but, you heavily invested on developing African entrepreneurs. So in closing, Clémence, what are the words, the last few words that you want to share with our audience?
Thank you, Njage, so much, and Edith and Claire. It's been really awesome to share this really insightful conversation with you all women founders. So that's a huge, win, and something I'm always proud of to participate in. And a special thank you to you, who's actually gone through the program and hypes it up for the entire call. So please, anyone who watched, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.
No, thank you very much, Clémence. When Clémence jumping off, I will just touch on what Claire was mentioning about your business. So I know that a lot of founders really struggled with making that shift, and actually seeing some positives when the pandemic hit, which of course is understandable, because the greatest hit would be your mental welfare, and you've got so many people that you're responsible for. You have a team. You obviously have clients that you've signed contracts with, and they've already paid you probably. So you have to quickly be able to be adaptable, like you said, and be resilient. So with the things that Claire mentioned, Edith, and I know this is something that's really close to your heart. Not only are you focused on building businesses, making them sustainable, and focusing on also their teams, but now you're going into focusing on the general and holistic well-being and the mental well-being of founders, which is something that is unfortunately we ourselves neglect, but we oftentimes expect other people to be able to show up for us like that, because you don't actually take time to consider, what am I struggling with as on a personal level outside of the business. And you also find that founders tend to struggle to detach their own personal identity from their businesses, because you've started this baby and it's your life, and now you consider yourself as just Arielle for Africa. what are some of the things with what Claire has mentioned, being able to think outside the box, adaptability, being able to be resilient? What are some of the things that you can share with the people that are joining us online that founders need to be intentional about when it comes to mental health, whether you're starting a business, growing it, and then of course, like we're focusing on the call, scaling it across different borders?
Wow. I mean, I didn't expect that. But I love that because I've been so passionate about this. I would say number one, your business is not your life. It is not all that you are. It is not you. Okay. You and your business, you are two separate legal entities. Your business is not you. You are not your business. Okay. And that business will not exist if you are not okay. So, my number one hope for founders is that as much work, time, effort, consistency that we put into the business, into our social channels, into all the things that we're doing, can we put that into ourselves? And can we even try and do it for a period of time? I had to sit down with myself and I was like, Edith, you have to take time off. You need to have leave days. Even if you're a solopreneur, a solo founder, no one has joined your team yet. Sit down, have leave days. Have days when you take breaks. Have hobbies. Okay. I am hiking Elephant Hill next weekend. I go for salsa class 3 times a week and I'm getting really good. I have things that I love to do outside of work. I have spaces where I interact with human beings outside of business. And it is so important because your business will never call you and tell you to take a break. It will never call you and say, if you worked on me enough, be kind to yourself. It will never call you and say your mental health is struggling, go and see a therapist. Never. Your employees will never call you and say, we think you need help. Let's set up a spa day for you. Let's set up a one-on-one with a psychologist for you. You have to tell yourself, as the founder, you have to tell yourself. So that's number one. Number two, have a circle of fellow founders. I love what Claire is doing because that's putting entrepreneurs in spaces where they can connect with other entrepreneurs. Nobody did that for me when I was starting out. I was by myself, everybody else had formal employment. I was a unicorn in my friend circles. I didn't have anybody to talk about these realities with. So having a circle of fellow founders that you can lean on and have honest conversations with, super important. And then the other thing that I'm hoping we will be able to kickstart very, very soon, at Arielle, we're working on Founders Anonymous, a space for founders to come and find a safe space where they can share their true realities, not just the glitzy, glossy LinkedIn good vibes, but the actual realities. And all of this came to me years ago when I was chatting with another entrepreneur out of the US. Her business is multi-million dollar right now. But at the time when we were chatting, she said, Edith, I have $5 and I don't know whether I'm gonna eat or buy toilet paper. And I told her, I said, listen, one comes before the other. Buy the food first, the toilet paper. But I was like, wow, like founders, we go through so much. So from that time, I've been saying I need to do something like this. So I'm so excited that we're setting up Founders Anonymous, that the world is going to hear entrepreneur stories like this one that I've just shared, raw and uncut and unfiltered. And that's coming.
Beautiful. Incredible. In closing, Claire, what would you like to share with our audience? I mean, you do incredible work. Of course, you did mention that you're a mom to, two little young ones. Of course, that comes with its own challenges and its own beautiful experiences, but it also, of course, comes with a lot of work. So what would you like to share, as we're closing the webinar, that you want people to be able to walk away having learned, and will be able to apply not only in their own personal lives, but in their businesses?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Nandi. I think the most important thing for me that I can share, like from my experience and what I know now, actually running an international business network from the African continent, is you're not alone. The chances are that someone else has shared and experienced the hurdles and the pains that all entrepreneurs go through, and reach out to, entrepreneurship can be a lonely journey. You can feel those intense feelings of loneliness sometimes. And for me, as an emotion, loneliness is worse than like breaking your leg. It's like, it's painful, but we have to like put our logical brains to the forefront and realize we're in Africa. There's no better place in the world to be, because it's actually more interconnected than people think, both in the public sector and the private sector. And people are usually, no matter what country you're trying to work in or invest in, are usually really generous. They're really generous with advice and help and guidance. So just remember that you're not alone. Africa is absolutely full of both local and international business networks, both in the public sector and the private sector. And the public and private sector, they offer different things. They offer different ways and means of helping entrepreneurs scale and expand, both locally and internationally. So I would advise entrepreneurs to use them both. A lot of them are free. Ours, Africa Scotland Business Network, is unfortunately not free. But for me as an entrepreneur, there's no such thing as a free dinner. I have 2 children to feed. I have a team to pay our salaries, and for me, healthy business exchange is really, really important. What you put in is what you get out. So investigate them all, and the chances are you can gain tens, if not hundreds, of immediate connections to entrepreneurs and businesses all over this continent in seconds, if you look hard enough, or just reach out to people like myself who can actually advise on that. Because I've got the research on networks and chambers out there all over the continent, because I have to know who they are and where they are. So more than happy to guide on that, depending on where you are in Africa.
Beautiful. So how do people reach you, Claire? If they want to learn more about Firecracker, if they want to learn more about Network. We also know that you also co-founded Illumination. Of course, we didn't get a chance to really speak about that. So if people want to get hold of Claire Alexander, how do they reach you?
Sure. So this is probably like a really great time to explain that although I still own Firecracker Marketing and Events, I've actually exited the company, the operations of the company. I just can't anymore. But something that is probably a really, really important leadership point. I've been doing event management for 15 years in African markets. For local and international clients here in Africa, in the African continent. There's a time when leaders need to get out their own way.
Yeah.
And hand over. I'm the biggest believer. I've only lived in this continent for 17 years, but I back young people. The young people here are phenomenal. They've got such talent, they're work ready, they're eager to learn. You can even, and I digress here, but I think this is quite important. 50% of our team are not qualified in what my businesses do. They've got the attitude. They've got their work ready. They're eager to learn, and they're under 30. They don't even have. They've came to me with no international business experience, but I see the shining lights in young people here. So. Sometimes leaders have to get out their own way to allow the to rise into management positions. And that's exactly what I've had to do at Firecracker. My business partner was like, Claire, you just get out your own way. come up, take the reins. So I've actually, I'm in Africa Scotland Business Network full time now. Although I'm the co-founder and the the CEO of the company, or joint CEO of the company, I'm very much in a business development role, but that's fine. And the important thing is for the audience, it's where I'm happy as well. It's where I'm in my flow. So if anyone wants to reach out, you're probably better doing it through the business network, because that's where I check my emails every day. My email is claire@africascotland.network. My name is Claire, or Clay, as they say in South Africa. That's it. There's my email on the screen there. You're more than welcome to reach out anytime. I'm always happy to answer any question. And if I can't, I will refer you to someone that will, because let's just keep the optimism and the goodwill going in Africa.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much, Kay, for that. You mentioned some incredible points. Africa is the future. We are the youngest population. And of course, we know that, our incredible founder, Edith, is indeed a unicorn, because she is still under 30, but she's still and immersed things. I mean, we know that she, has a triple master's and has founded other businesses outside of Arielle for Africa. But, in closing, Edith, what would you like to share with our audience? Maybe something that we didn't touch on this particular webinar.
Yeah, I think I would say, in line with what Claire said about getting out of your own way, is being able to read the seasons of your business and of yourself, and knowing how to act in wisdom in the different seasons. I know Claire is a mom, so she probably understands exactly what I'm saying. So I'm not a mom. So knowing the different seasons that we go through as human beings, as people, and as an entrepreneur, and having, number one, grace with yourself through whichever season. Whether you're booming, whether things are just monotonous and you're just sending the same emails and doing the same things and wondering what's going on, or if you're in chaos. I think for me, the thing is always remember the season that you're in. And then I would also say, talk yourself through the daily wins every evening. We're very good at highlighting negatives in our day. We rarely sit down and say, actually, this was one win today and another win, and I did this and I did that and I finished this and this got done. And what ends up happening is that you will wake up and live not just as a grateful person, because gratitude is one thing, but I think acknowledging the win in a very difficult journey is just as important. So I would say celebrate those wins and do it every single day as an entrepreneur, because no one else is going to celebrate you. So you need to pat your own back, and you need to get good at that. Nobody's going to have a business shower the way they have, I don't know, baby showers or wedding showers. So you need to shower yourself every single day as a business owner, and give yourself grace as you do that. That's it for me.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Thank you so much, ladies, for those words of wisdom. And if ever you guys think of throwing me a shower or ask, my present or gift that you should give me should be cash flow. I want nothing else. Okay, I appreciate your love and support, but cash flow is what I would like for the business shower. But in closing, of course, you can reach out to Claire. You can find her on LinkedIn. We've also shared her website and as well as her email address, and we'll continue to do that even after the webinar on our LinkedIn page. You can also, reach out to us at Arielle for Africa. We're available on LinkedIn with the same name, as well as on X and Instagram. And if you want to find out more about our services, you can visit us at Arielle for Africa, where you learn about the different programs that we have under our sustainability department, namely, the Just Transition and our recently launched Gender Inclusivity Program. We also have an exciting service called Arielle Tech, where we offer an array of incredible services that include SaaS development, website development, and of course refinement when it comes to clients within the tech space. And of course, we offer advisory services through Arielle Advisory. So do connect with us and reach out to us. This being our last webinar for the year as part of our webinar series, we want to say thank you very much. We appreciate you as the Arielle team. Since we started the series, we've had such incredible feedback and input that we've been able to incorporate into the business. We've created new programs to address some of the challenges that some of our audience has shared with us. So thank you very much for taking the time for joining us, not only today, but through the entire series. We'll see you next year, 2025. We will have incredible panelists, speaking about very relevant and conversations that are necessary to be had, especially in how one grows, not only as a business, but also as an entrepreneur. Ladies, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.
From a personal perspective, I think I've always been very passionate about the young people. I saw it as an opportunity to not just create jobs like I was doing before, but now working with entrepreneurs and empowering so that the job creation comes from them.
Arielle for Africa, it's like a vision came true for me, because I am from a country where there is a lot of potential, but we never get to put it out there and live it because of course, the political situation and the whole system. Especially for the youth, it's very, very difficult.
But immediately when we had this idea and we spoke with Edith and I spoke with Feruz, there was no way we couldn't do it. We shared the same passion. We want to help people, and we understand that the gold and the treasures in Africa lie with the young people in Africa.
So we have people we picked from a pool of people that applied. We picked 30 of them who are from 5 industries, that is the agriculture, arts, food and beverage, retail, and IT.